First, you said on your first day of office, you're going to pardon January 6th defendants. Are you planning to pardon those who were charged with violent offenses?
Well, we're looking at it, and we have other people in there.
The fact that that's not an automatic no, like anybody who assaulted cops, no, I'm not going to pardon them, is so profoundly disturbing.
We have to find out about Hezbollah. We have to find out about who exactly was in that whole thing, because people that did some bad things were not prosecuted. You know, I see it.
What the f is Hezbollah? We're talking about January 6 people who assaulted cops. If that was Joe Biden, there would be 5,000 videos going viral on TikTok right now.
Thank you all for coming. We'll take a couple of questions. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
President, thank you. Wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about...
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh God. What? Oh boy. Oh boys, let's go.
About what your plan is. Are you going to negotiate a new treaty?
I mean, technically, you know, he could have been referring to economic coercion there, I guess. I don't know.
Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages. The hostages were a big deal. But if you remember, and nobody wants to talk about the Panama Canal now because, you know, it's inappropriate, I guess, but because it's a bad part of the Carter legacy. But he was a good man. Look, he was a good man. I knew him a little bit.
He's trying to do some damage control here. Shit talking Jimmy Carter 5 days after he died, or when did he die? This man has no class, bro.
And he was a very fine person, but that was a big mistake. Giving the Panama Canal to Panama was a very big mistake. We lost 38,000 people. It cost us the equivalent of $1 trillion, maybe more than that. Probably the most expensive, they say it was the most expensive structure, if we call it a structure, which I guess you can, ever built. Giving that away was a horrible thing. And I believe that's why Jimmy Carter lost the election, even more so than the hostages. Those two things.
If I could just follow up on Ukraine and Iran, the two negotiations you'll be heading into. On Ukraine, you said just before it's a lot more complicated now.
Much more complicated.
Do you believe...
Because it would have never started.
Right, but it has started. You've
well,
got,
not only started, the cities are largely knocked down.
So you've got what you've got. At this point, to hold on to leverage in dealing with President Putin, would you make a commitment to the Ukrainians that you will keep supporting them during the negotiations?
Well, I wouldn't tell you if that were the case.
Would you make a commitment to provide a security guarantee if they do enter into an armistice or a ceasefire along the lines that the French and the Germans?
So, you know, a big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. Now, they've said that. That's been, like, written in stone. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. But there were a lot of mistakes made in that negotiation. And when I heard the way that Biden was negotiating, I said, you're going to end up in a war. And it turned out to be a very bad war. And it could escalate. That war could escalate to be much worse than it is right now.
What is he saying, that Biden was negotiating before Russia invaded? What is he talking about? Does anyone know what he's talking about?
They can never join NATO.
Well, my view is that it was always understood. In fact, I believe that they had a deal, and then Biden broke it. They had a deal which would have been a satisfactory deal to Ukraine and everybody else, but that Biden said, no, you have to be able to join NATO. And that's always been, and nobody knows more about NATO than I.
He's referring to the deal, and like the specifics might be a little bit hazy for me, but what he's talking about was this, like, Russia proposed, like, basically early on in the conflict, complete surrender from the Ukrainians. Like, the Ukrainians would like dissolve their own military and then commit to not joining NATO, I think, for like 20 years, which would have just certainly resulted in Putin just going in and eventually and just taking the rest of the country. It's like the deal that was proposed in the beginning was not a serious, like, the Ukrainians were never going to accept that deal.
Years ago, when I first started this, I didn't know too much about NATO, but I got it right anyway. I said they're taking advantage. I'm the one that got, and the Secretary General was here, as you know, 2 weeks ago, saying that if it weren't for me, NATO wouldn't even exist right now, because I raised from countries that weren't paying their bills. At that time, 28 countries, 20 of them were not paying their bills, 21 to be exact. They weren't paying.
I said it last night on the Live and Learn podcast. It's a term that gets thrown around way too much. Gaslighting. A lot of people say gaslighting when they just mean like lying, but the level of dishonesty when Trump talks about this stuff. NATO wouldn't even exist were it not for me. When Trump has been the most direct threat to NATO in terms of their existence in the last several decades, he openly floats the idea of exiting NATO. He does the same thing with the ACA. He claims that he's the reason why the ACA is still around, which is insane. Like, he tried to destroy the ACA. What's the other big thing that he talks about, like, in terms of DACA? That was the other thing too. Like, he claims that he's the reason why DACA still exists when he tried to get rid of DACA with an executive order. Like, he's just so... he takes the dishonesty to a level that it's hard to call it anything other than absurd. Absurd.
Or they were paying a very small portion. And I raised over $680 billion. That was the number he gave, by saying, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. And as soon as I said that, the money came pouring in. But Obama could have said it. Other people could have said it. Bush could have said it. Nobody said it but me. I took a lot of heat. They said, oh, that's a threatening statement. Well, they weren't paying their bills. I said, we're not going to protect you if you're not paying the bills. So in a true sense, I saved NATO, but NATO's taken advantage of us. And one of the problems that I have, and I've said it openly, I said it to President Zelensky, Europe is in for a tiny fraction of the money that we're in. Now, whether you like that situation or not, Europe is much more affected than the United States. We have a thing called the ocean in between us, right? Why are we in for billions and billions of dollars more money than Europe? And, you know, they're a similar size, a little smaller, but they're a similar size economy as the United States when you add them up. And yet Europe is in for a small fraction of the number the United States is in. Now, Biden could have called them up during the term. That's what I did. I said, you have to pay your bills. And they all, one stood up. I won't say who. You'll probably have it because the papers, the media hated to report on it. But a prime minister stood up from a country, you know, a famous meeting of 28 nations with no press, no anybody in the room. He stood up. He says, does that mean if we don't pay our bill, and at that point it was 2%, it should be 5%. It should be 5%, not 2%. But at that point it was 2%, but many people didn't pay. Some people didn't pay anything. But many people were way, including Germany. Germany was at less than 1%.
You're going to press for 5%?
Well, I think NATO should have 5%, yeah. Well, you can't do it at 2%. I mean, at 2%, every country, if you're going to have a country in a regular military, you're at 4%. I think they should be, you know, they're in dangerous territory. I think it should be, they can all afford it, but they should be at 5%, not 2%. I'm the one that got them to pay 2%. But a gentleman stood up, a prime minister stood up, and he said to me, sir, could I ask you a question? You're saying we have to pay our bills. If we don't pay our bills, will the United States protect us from Russia? I said, if you don't pay, you mean you're delinquent? He said, yes. He said, if you're delinquent, we will not protect you. I took a lot of heat, although it was somewhat closed door. I took a lot of heat from the media. And you know what happened? The money started pouring in. That's why NATO has money. And the Secretary General said it was the most incredible thing he had ever seen.
Yeah, that's right. No one pays anything. It's just investment in military, and he makes it sound like they give us money. Yeah, he makes it sound like the way he proposes it, it's like a racketeering scheme. You know what I mean? Like somebody going into your bodega and asking for $20,000 a month for protection or whatever. Like he sounds like a mafia boss when he talks about this stuff.
In a negotiation. Now, if I would have said, yes, we will, nobody would have paid. If I would have loved to say, yes, we'll protect you even if you don't pay. But that's not the way life works.
Mr. President, two questions related to each other. First, you said on your first day of office, you're going to pardon January 6th defendants. Are you planning to pardon those who were charged with violent offenses?
Well, we're looking at it, and we have other people in there. And as you see, I guess 24 or 28 people.
The fact that that's not an automatic no. Like anybody who assaulted cops, no, I'm not going to pardon them. The fact that he doesn't say that immediately is so profoundly disturbing to me and to many other Americans. It's so disturbing. How is that not just like, no, I will not pardon people who assaulted cops? Like they're supposed to be like the thin blue line, back the blue. Like they're supposed to be the party of enormous support for our law enforcement. And, you know, for somebody who like I have so many family members are in law enforcement, so many family members. Thankfully, none of them were, you know, Capitol Police on January 6, 2021. But it pisses me off, bro.
Came now from the FBI. That came out very quietly. Nobody reported it, but they had people in some form related to the FBI. They had 4 or 5 people that were strongly related to the FBI. We have to find out about that. We have to find out about Hezbollah. We have to find out about who exactly was in that whole thing, because people that did some bad things were not prosecuted. You know, I see it all the time, and you see it too.
What? What the f is Hezbollah? Did he just have a brain fart? Like, what the f was that? Why are we talking about Hezbollah? We're talking about January 6 people who assaulted cops.
People that were doing some bad things weren't prosecuted, and people that didn't even walk into the building are in jail right now. So we'll be looking at the whole thing, but I'll be making major pardons. Yes, please.
I think he meant, yeah, I think he meant Antifa. Yeah. That's a Biden moment right there. If that was Joe Biden, there would be 5,000 videos going viral on TikTok right now. You have Donald Trump saying that we have to look into Hezbollah's involvement in January 6th.
Please.
On Jack Smith's report.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. It's good to see you again. 2 questions about Syria and the ongoing war in Gaza. About Syria, the Pentagon disclosed last month the U.S. has some 2,000 troops in Syria. That's almost double the number initially we were told of 900. Will you keep that troop capacity the same upon taking over?
Well, I won't tell you that because that's part of a military strategy, but I will say it was Turkey. Turkey's been after that country in different names and different forms and shapes for 2,000 years. Those people that went in are from Turkey. And President Erdogan is a friend of mine. He's a guy I like, respect. I think he respects me also. He's the one that didn't go after certain people after I requested that he not. You know who I'm talking about, the Kurds. I don't know how long that's going to, because they're natural enemies. They hate each other. But he didn't do that yet. And he didn't do it in the past also. He started, and I said, please don't do that, and he didn't do it. So, but if you look at what happened with Syria, Russia was weakened, Iran was weakened, and he's a very smart guy. And he sent his people in there through different forms and different names, and they went in and they took over, and that's the way it is.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you have concerns about HTS taking control of Syria?
By the way, I have the envoy here. Is that in the back? It is. Standing with my son, Eric, is Steve Witkoff, who's just got back from the Middle East, and he's done a fantastic job. He's a great deal maker. I said, what we need there is a deal maker, because nobody makes a deal. We have people that understand where the rivers are and where the meets and bounds are, but they can't talk. They can't make deals. Steve's done a great job. I just want to thank you, Steve. You've been working endlessly for months, and he's working specifically on the hostages, trying to get.
That's right. That's right. Wait, hold on. Dog says, I remember him showing up in the United States and his goons attacking protesters in front of American police under his watch. No, they joined American police. So there was some kind of protest going on in DC when Erdogan was visiting the Capitol. And they were like, I guess, anti-Erdogan protesters. I'm not really 100% sure of the context of that. And I'm not even sure I can show you guys the video because it's technically like violent, right? So like Erdogan's basically his like Secret Service, his security detail got out of the limos and started beating the living shit out of American protesters on American soil and paid no price for it. There was no consequences for that whatsoever.
Get him back.
Well, that was my second question is Hamas.
Steve, come up for a second. Maybe you might want to say a couple of words.
Sir,
I didn't-
Hamas released another hostage
I didn't know Steve was going to be here, actually.
Neither did I.
He's done a fantastic job, and it's a dangerous job, too, and we appreciate it. He didn't know about this kind of danger and the other deal-making he does. Now he sees a lot of big danger. Come on up, Steve.
Mr. President, can I ask you a second part of that? Hamas
Yeah,
released
just one
another
second,
hostage
please.
video.
I'm going to give you a little report on the hostages, if I can. Steve? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wow. Well, I think we're making a lot of progress, and I don't want to say too much because I think they're doing a really good job back in Doha. I'm leaving tomorrow back to go to Doha, but I think that we've had some really
Who the Steve? Who's this guy?
great progress, and I'm really hopeful that by the inaugural, we'll have some good things to announce on behalf of the President. I actually believe that we're working in tandem in a really good way.
Oh,
but
Steve. Steve. Yeah, right. Sorry. Yeah.
it's the President,
Brain
his
fart.
reputation, the things that he has said that are driving this negotiation. And so hopefully it'll all work out and we'll save some lives.
Netanyahu, if you guys don't realize this, is absolutely capable, sort of like similar to what happened in the 1980 election with the hostages in Iran. Netanyahu is absolutely willing to delay, ending the war and securing a deal to get more hostages until Donald Trump is inaugurated in order to make the GOP look good and make Democrats look bad. Like, he is that guy. He would do that, for the record.
I believe we've been on the verge of it. I don't want to discuss sort of what's delayed it. There's no point to be negative in any way. But I think it's the President, his stature, what he said he expects, the red lines he's put out there, that's driving this negotiation. I'm going back probably either this evening or tomorrow night.
Are you confident there'll be a deal before January 20th, or is that something that's likely to happen? If there's a deal even at all, and we've been hearing this now for the better part of.
I know.
since October 7th.
I would say,
They better be.
right. I would say that the President is exasperated. I don't want to talk for him, but look, I don't know anyone who delegates better than.
Wait, is he, when he says the president, is he talking about Donald Trump? There's one president at a time, for Christ's sakes. Is he talking about Trump right now? Listen, that's the president-elect. I'm not saying don't call him that, but I'm just, like, the way he's talking right now is so, like, who the is Steve? Who is this guy?
President Trump. He gives us a lot of authority to speak on his behalf, and he exhorts us to speak emphatically. And emphatically means you better get it, you better do this, because the alternative.
Do you think they're waiting for President Trump to take office?
No, I think they heard him loud and clear. Better get done by the inaugural.
But when you say all hell will be
Before I
paid,
take
or
office.
that all hell must be paid if they don't release the
You know what that
hostages.
means, don't you?
Well-
Do I have to define it for you? Look, all
No, I know
hell
you're not
will
gonna
break out.
telegraph
If
what-
those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is. And they should have given them back a long time. They should have never taken them. There should have never been the attack of October 7th. People forget that. But there was, and many people are killed. They're no longer hostages. I have people from Israel and others calling, begging me to get, we had also people there from the United States, just so you know. They're holding some so-called hostages from the U.S. But I've had mothers come to me and fathers.
He looks like an actor. I don't know this actor's name. Nobody knows. We've seen him in like 20 films. You guys know who I'm talking about? Look at this face. Not Lorne Michaels. No, he's a really short guy. He's always like one of the side guys, He played Amy Winehouse's dad in the Amy Winehouse movie. Eddie Marsan. This guy. That's him, bro. That's literally him. That's Steve. Look at his face. Look at his face. You can't even see it. It's so, hold on. That's him. That's him. This guy, this guy. I feel like he was probably in like The Gentleman. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing.
Can I get the body of their son back? Can I get the body of their daughter back? That beautiful girl where they threw her in the car, pulled her by her ponytail and threw her in the car like she was a sack of potatoes. I said,
we only got 2 albums from Amy Winehouse before we lost her, bro. It was a generational voice. Just one of my favorite artists of all time. Back to Black is probably on my top 5, maybe top 10. And we only got 2 albums from her. It's so tragic.
What happened to her? Sir, she's dead. Like a 19, 20-year-old beautiful girl. And the way they treated her. And I just say it this very simply. Steve's got a job to do. He's a great guy, great negotiator, great person. They respect him over there already. It's what we needed over there. We have people that know everything about the Middle East, but they can't speak properly. They don't know. He's a great negotiator. That's what I needed. I could have sent that gentleman right over there, Hussein. He's a great negotiator. There are people, they're rare. Great negotiators are very rare, like a great surgeon. But we have the right person. But I tell this, I don't want to hurt the negotiation. If the deal isn't done before I take office, which is now going to be 2 weeks, all hell will break out in the More East. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Steve shot his pants right there.
More than 140 police officers were injured by rioters on January 6th. Will you pardon anyone who attacked a police officer?
Well, the only one that was killed was a beautiful young lady named
Oh. This piece of shit. Unbelievable piece of shit. I'm really trying my hardest to not be in a place of anger since the election, guys. I'm trying to be on a spiritual path. No bullshit. I'm really trying to walk a spiritual path. Spending less time on toxic social media, not dwelling in a place of anger. I'm really trying to not just be pissed 24/7 since this election. And then he says shit like this, there were like 120 police officers that sustained injuries on January 6th. And then it was reported that was underreported. So a lot of officers were injured and never sought any kind of treatment for their injuries. You had cops that had their rib cage crushed. You had a cop who had his eyeball poked out. You had a cop who had a stroke on that day and died the next day. And then the coroner's report said that all the events that took place on January 6th played a role in that man's condition. The cops had their parts of their fingers chopped off. They were literally mutilated. Literally. It's not even, this is not. And so he's asked this question. There were I think the question was there were over 4 dozen people that were convicted of what was the exact question?
More than 140 police officers were injured by rioters.
More than 140 were injured. But I think over 20 had to retire because of the injuries that they sustained were so severe.
On January 6th, Will you pardon anyone who attacked a police officer?
Well, you know, the only one that was killed was a beautiful young lady named Ashley Babbitt. She was killed. And
I mean, to be fair, he was kind of mid. Let's be honest. I'm just saying. Okay.
there was actually somebody else that was killed, also a MAGA person, but people don't.
They died of a meth overdose, Donald Trump. You're right. There were a couple other MAGA people that died that day because they took meth and overdosed and literally had heart attacks because they took meth when they were trying to storm the Capitol. That's what happened.
Give it 100% credibility. I'm going to find out about it. We're going to find out. But Ashley Babbitt was killed. She was shot. Should have never been shot. She was shot for no reason whatsoever. In fact, they say that
there were hundreds of representatives barricaded in the House chambers, hunkering down underneath their seats, and you had Capitol police officers that were assigned to protect those chambers. Can you imagine what possibly could have occurred if that line was broken? So they had barricaded themselves into the House chambers. Not everybody got evacuated. And so you had hundreds of House representatives that were like, and then just imagine, so they shatter the glass. They're getting ready to charge in there when you have these members of Congress that are trying to seek safety underneath their seats. Can you imagine what possibly could have happened that day if the cop didn't? That is, of all the police shootings I have ever seen, and this is America in the age of social media. How many police shootings have we seen? I've seen hundreds. And of the hundreds of police shootings that I've seen, that was the most justified I have ever seen. That it was the most clear-cut example of a justified homicide. What other choice did she give him? She was warned, stay back, stay back, stay back. The people around her were shouting, he's got a gun, he's got a gun, he's got a gun. And she said, YOLO, front lines, I'll be the tip of the spear, get me in there. I don't think it was a thing that should be celebrated. I mean, I loathe Ashley Babbitt's politics. She was an insane person. She was a actual insane person. Just a perfect example of a radicalized MAGA fanatic with the worst politics. I'm not celebrating the fact that she got shot, but that was so justified. What choice did she give that police officer? What was he supposed to do? Let her in? And then how many dozens more would follow after her? Was he really supposed to let that happen? And it's all because of this guy. It's literally all his fault. The responsibility for what happened on January 6th, I almost said September 11th. For all we know, Donald Trump did 9/11. I really don't know at this point. It was entirely because of him. He's the reason they were there. He's the reason they stormed that Capitol.
he was trying to hold back the crowd, and the crowd was made up of a lot of different people, so we'll see. But I will tell you this, the person that was killed was Ashley Babbitt. The other thing is, when they talk, you know, there was never charges of insurrection or anything like that. But if there were, this would be the only insurrection in history.
There were never any charges for, as far as I know, for rioting in summer of 2020. Does that mean that no riots took place?
Where people went in as insurrectionists with not one gun.
There were guns. There were weapons. It wasn't just guns. There were guns that were confiscated that day. There were people that were arrested on gun charges that day. I don't know. I'm not saying that most of the people there had guns. But then you also had a bevy of other weapons that were confiscated. People went in with clubs. People stole police officers' batons and then used it against them. People were using fire extinguishers as weapons that day. There were blades that were confiscated that day. There were weapons. There were plenty of weapons that were confiscated during that event. And there were plenty of people after the fact that were charged with weapons charges. There were pipe bombs that were planted all around DC.
Okay. And let me tell you, the people that you're talking about have a lot of guns in their home for hunting and for shooting and for entertainment, a lot of good reasons. But there wasn't one gun that they found And why didn't they find the bomber?
The other thing too is like, we know that he knows that there were guns because he was trying to tell we know that he was trying to tell the Secret Service at the ellipse when he was giving the speech before they marched over to the Capitol. The Secret Service had, what do you call them, magnometers set up? So metal detectors to detect people trying to bring weapons. And he was trying to tell the Secret Service to get rid of the magnometers. He said, what do we have to worry about? Those are my people. So he knows that there were weapons there. He knows that there were guns there. He's just lying.
Pipe bomber. You know, they know who the pipe bomber is. The FBI knows who it is. The status of the FBI has gone down so far.
Now he's just like, I just want you guys to consider just how flippant he just, the kind of accusation that he just made, and the reason that and the fact that he made it so flippantly. He just accused the FBI of being complicit in the pipe bombing situation in DC. And this is just normal. This is just a normal thing that people suggest. And now you have like the leader of the country, the leader of the Republican Party, is accusing the FBI of being in on the plot to pipe bomb DC on January 6th. That's what an insane thing to suggest. And yet he says it, and then tens of millions of MAGA parrot morons make the same thing. They're like, oh, come on, use your head. Obviously they were in on it. The FBI, I mean, they were the reasons why people flooded the Capitol in the first place. It's just such a, his superpower is he makes everyone around him dumber. The stupidity levels just go up exponentially on his watch.
And the status of the DOJ, or as I call it, the Department of Justice, it's the Department of Injustice, being laughed at all over the world. And hopefully with Pam Bondi and with Kash Patel and with other people that we're putting in, that will all come back. If you do a poll in the FBI, I guarantee I'm at like 90% with the agents of the FBI, but they have hurt that incredible place. Law enforcement, I mean, you think of the FBI, they raided this house. By the way, they could have told me, could I see this? I would have given them, I actually told them, come in anytime you want. You can see anything. They raided the house and the case was dismissed. And now I'm in litigation. I'm suing them for doing that. And I feel so badly doing it. I'm the president of the United States and I'm suing the United States, but I'm suing them for other things too. The FBI has gone so, its reputation has been so horribly hurt between Comey, who is the worst, and all of the others. What's happened to the FBI is, and we're going to make it great again. We're going to make the FBI great again. We're going to make the Department of Justice fair and strong, but fair again. Because all they did was attack me because I'm their political opponent. And that includes with local judges like Marchand. You ought to find out. Ask them, why do I have a gag order where I'm not allowed to speak? Think of it. I'm the president of the United States, and I'm not allowed to speak. Why? Because if I did speak, people would understand the scam. It's a scam. And we have very dishonest judges, and New York judges are very bad. We had one that valued this house at $18 million because it was good for their case. He actually
Wasn't a judge that did that, but okay.
valued that.
He's just lying. He just lied. Like he's just the blatant brazen lies is breathtaking. It wasn't a judge that appraised. Like we already went through this, so like I think it was like a county official. So like the process of like appraising a property or whatever is like done through the county, I believe. And is it Palm Beach County where Mar a Lago is? I'm not sure what county it is in Florida, but if you declare your property as private property, it's going to be appraised in a different manner than if you declare it to be a golf club. Donald Trump declared Mar a Lago. It's technically not a residence, I believe. Maybe it's like a little bit of a hybrid or whatever, but it's classified as a golf club. And so it is appraised in terms of like how much income it brings in. That's the difference. And so it got appraised at some low, I don't know, 18 to $25 million. But that was the income that the club generated the year prior or something like that. He just lies. It's just a blatant lie. That's what this is.
Chandelier is worth more than $18 million. He valued this house as $18 million. And We have another one who was so nasty, so horrible, such a brute, most vicious, vile person. These are New York judges. But we've won most of the cases, so we're very happy about that. Please.
Of the charges or of the cases that went to trial, he's not doing great. Like he lost the first defamation case against E. Jean Carroll. He lost the second defamation case against E. Jean Carroll. He lost the falsifying business records case in Manhattan. There were two election interference cases. There was one in Georgia that was a state level case, and then there was the one in DC. Yeah, of all the ones that actually went to trial, I think he's lost them all.
But have you directed your staff to take any specific actions to draw plans? And can you elaborate again? You didn't rule out military coercion.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I.
That's not what is it the prime minister? That's not what the prime minister of Greenland said. Is it prime minister? Greenland prime minister? The Denmark prime minister just flatly said, that's not going to happen. And then the Greenland prime minister, they do want independence. I think I think he took a public position of wanting independence, and I think maybe that's the first time a prime minister has taken that position. But neither Denmark nor Greenland are interested in making Greenland a part of the United States.
I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
Have you asked your staff to draw plans for acquisition? I mean, are you active?
No, we're not at that stage, but we have people. I haven't even entered office yet.
Secondly, sir, Elon Musk has drawn some criticism and a lot of attention for some of his actions and provocative statements about foreign affairs, including in Europe. Your reaction to that, is that appropriate for...
You mean where he likes people that tended to be conservative? I don't know the people. I can say Elon's doing a good job, very smart guy. I don't know the people you're talking about. He was, I know he said some negative things about a couple of people that are running for office, but that's not so unusual. Yes, please.
I wanted to ask you about Ukraine and Putin. How soon do you anticipate going to meet with Putin to discuss the Ukraine situation?
Well, I can't tell you that, but I know that Putin would like to meet. I don't think it's appropriate that I meet until after the 20th, which I hate, because every day people are being, many young people are being killed, soldiers. The land is very flat, and hundreds of thousands of soldiers from many.
I mean, Putin could just stop, right? Like he could just pull the troops and stop trying to invade Ukraine, right? Like he could end it right now if he wanted to.
Hundreds of thousands from each side are dead, and they're laying in fields all over the place. Nobody to even collect. There's landmines all over. It's a disaster.
And now a lot of North Korean troops too are dying over there.
But it's very flat. It's great. It's farmland, and it's very, very flat. And the only thing that stops a bullet is the human body. And the human...
I don't even know about what about like steel, like really thick steel, rocks, like mountains, the ocean, gravity, basically any like hard substance. Yeah.
Human body is stopping a lot of bullets.
Within the
I hope so. I hope.
Human bodies are made of adamantium, as we all know, right?
Hope to have 6 months.
Vibranium.
No, I hope long before 6 months.
Is vibranium a thing in the actual Marvel comics? Or did they just come up with that to get around calling it adamantium because of the Fox stuff? It is a thing in the comics? Okay.
Look.
Is vibranium, is it as strong as adamantium? Or is it stronger or is it weaker?
Russia's losing a lot of young people, and so is Ukraine. And it should have never been started. That's a war that should have never happened. I guarantee you, if I were president, that war would have never happened.
Who would you like to nominate to replace Michael Barr as vice chair of the military?
I'll be announcing somebody.
Mr. President, if we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to?
This is one thing that I'd totally back Trump on. We should invade and annex Canada. Now, if you're from Canada and you're watching the stream, hear me out. Okay. First of all, you want to be on this team. It's America. Okay. This is where the culture comes from. This is where the tech comes from. Okay. This is where the latent racism comes from. You want all of that. All right. You will benefit from being a part of the most powerful and most wealthy nation in the history of nations. Okay. And it benefits me because most of you guys are soy cuck liberals, right? Now, Trudeau, he just had to resign. Looks like the conservatives are on the come up over there, okay? But it's not because Canada loves conservatism. It's because they don't like Trudeau, okay? So if we, I say let's not have Canada be one state. Let's have its like 12 provinces or whatever. How many provinces are there in Canada? 10. Okay. Let's do 10 new states. I don't see why we need to absorb the entire, like one big state. Well, technically, I mean, like, what's the population of Canada? There's like nobody up there. Canada is like 99% just trees and mountains. Doesn't California have more people than Canada? 38 million. You guys, you don't even have 39 million people in Canada. So maybe we'll try to be fair and have it be like 4 states, right? And then give them 2 senators each and then give them representatives. Win-win, okay? You get to be on the winning team and then we get your liberal cucks. Anyway, sorry.
Annex and acquire Canada.
No. Economic force.
Okay, hold on.
Military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No. Economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending...
Is he serious? Is he serious, you guys? Is this a bit? Like,
word salad.
Is he serious? He wants to use economic coercion to try to annex Canada? I guess that's what we're talking about now in 2025? And I guess we have to have serious conversations about this? Like, what is happening, you guys?
Hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more?
You negotiated that trade deal. You negotiated that. Are you mad at yourself? Are you mad at like 2018 Trump that negotiated the USMCA? When was the USMCA negotiated? There was a formal agreement in October of 2018 and it passed the House and the Senate so the House in 2019, the Senate in 2020, and and Trump signed it into law on January 29th, 2020. His administration negotiated the successor to NAFTA. So what is he complaining about here?
Protect Canada. And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, What would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope, no right. Here's what we have. We have a right not to help them with their financial difficulties because we owe $36 trillion too. We're going to start knocking it out pretty fast, but we're going to be able to do it because of energy and other things. But no right. No right. But why are we supporting a country, 200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told
like the meme with the guy with the hot dog outfit. We're all trying to figure out who did this.
Trudeau, when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function if we didn't take their 20% of our car market. They send us hundreds of thousands of cars. They make a lot of money with that. They send us a lot of other things that we don't need. We don't need their cars, and we don't need the other products. We don't need their milk. We got a lot of milk. We got a lot of everything. And we don't need any of it. So I said to him, well, why are we doing it? He said, I don't really know. He was unable to answer the question, but I can answer it. We're doing it because of habit, and we're doing it because we like our neighbors, and we've been good neighbors. But we can't do it forever, and it's a tremendous amount of money. And why should we have a $200 billion deficit and add on to that many, many other things that we give them in terms of subsidy? And I said, that's okay to have if you're a state. But if you're another country, we don't want to have it. We're not going to have it with European Union either. European Union, we have a trade deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take anything. And so we're not going to have it with them either.